You're listening to The Safe House, and we're going to talk about domestic violence, child sexual abuse, and topics that I think are going to be appropriate for what might be going on. Children are taught to be obedient, and when they're not obedient, they get easily confused by the adults that are abusing them. And it's a very big conflict in relationships, even as adults. So uh, we could talk about that being said because right now there's no children here, and we could talk about maybe the adult issues that stem from child sexual abuse, like in the case of an offender. It may be different because it may not be somebody you know. Um, but in a lot of cases, it's usually somebody you know that has easy access to the child and has no intentions on honoring or respecting the family and the children in it. So, what I came away with from June Hunt's show is that I was on the broadcast, and I will be on the next broadcast I think next week or the week after. And when we were talking about child sexual abuse, we were talking about why we get re-victimized, or what causes us to go back into that cycle where we're re-victimized, and we know that what we're doing is not honoring God, and we're in that vicious cycle. And that's the only best way to describe what abuse is like. It's like a cycle of other things. It's like trying to break the cycle of cigarette smoke or addiction is the same way. And when we got away from recovery because of the COVID and all the other things that were going on, we started going into the cycle of abuse again. We started like living through the same stuff. So there's good information available at Hope for the Heart. There are resources and tools that can help you break that cycle, because I know that chain of addiction. I felt it, and I'm going to talk about pleasing God other than pleasing people. Pleasing man is not God. It was not God's intention to not be obedient, but I'm just saying that it's a very confusing statement for a child that's been abused by a parent or an adult to respect authority. Okay? So there's a lot of issues there that have to be addressed. When we talk about the child parent relationship, they do this in counseling, and that's, of course, secular counseling. But in counseling, we have to identify who we're pleasing. We're pleasing God. If our behavior is not pleasing God, then we know we have to address it, okay? So as a child, you got to please the Lord God. And that means, picking up after yourself, cleaning up, doing things for yourself, and being self-sufficient. And you raise children young, and when they're young, it's a lot easier to raise them to be more self-sufficient. Besides, when they go to school, they're going to have to adapt. And they're going to have to learn how to do for themselves anyway. Learning how to apply themselves in school, study, and read. That's some of it. You as the parent can't be there hovering over that child. They have to learn to do for themselves. And that was my discussion on raising kids to be independent. There's some things they can do on their own. There's some things that they cannot. They still need supervision, okay? And they're still young enough where they need supervision, but they're old enough they can do for themselves too, And I'm talking about children around 12 and 13, 14 years old, okay? The safe house is that way. It's a place to go for a family or families, or oftentimes a young woman with children, um, to get help. And it's in Oil City. And thankfully, with the help of the people that we've been working with since 2008, we've learned a lot about how to feel safe again, how to recover, how to do a lot for ourselves. Like, I mean, it's not that we're not capable of doing the things. It's you get so caught up in the dysfunction that you forget about the healthy things. And a lot of people who are in this dysfunctional cycle, like myself, go through a tremendous difficult time trying to break that cycle without learning that, hey, I need healthy people in my life to guide me in decisions, and I need to be able to make decisions that make sense, use my common sense. Got to teach common sense. That's one thing. You got to be able to teach kids how to think for themselves and not be stuck, because that is what they teach. A lot of times what abuse teachers use to stay stuck in that rut or go back to that abuser or allow that abuser to reoffend you. And when we talk about kids and things that had happened when we were wrong, it says in the 12-step program, promptly admit we were wrong. And I was wrong for a lot of things I did when I was younger. So that's how you start to recover, because you start to recognize, hey, I was wrong when I was 12 and 13 years old, or 14 or 17, messing with somebody's tire and trying to, provoke a fight or provoke another, problem. I see myself doing this as an adult. It's because I'm learning to take risks, and I'm like, okay, those behaviors might be too risky. And because we are adults, we take a higher risk by using risky behavior. So there is such a thing as being abstinent, and being able to teach abstinence and say, hey, once you get caught up in that bad cycle of things, it feels bad. So why a bad feeling feels bad? Well, that I don't know, but I can tell you this one, that's a good thing, because that gives you a chance to recognize, like, I made mistakes, and I made mistakes that I was paying for it, and I was taking it out on myself, and that was self-destructive behavior. And when I learned that I can recover and get the help I need. Thank God. That link will be below. Please, if you can, remember to back the blue.